Hey there, Dr. Andrew Merrill here again with Nightlight Chiropractic, downtown Orlando's evening hours chiropractic and massage clinic. And today's video is just a little bit twisty and turny with a couple bends. And if you hang in there with me for just a minute, though, I'm going to tie it all together and I'll show you how it's relative to you. So anyways, by now everyone has heard that Tiger Woods won the Masters this past Sunday, right? After 14 years, after 3 back surgeries, after a divorce, after falling way out of the rankings, he won that tournament this past Sunday. And the first thing that everyone wanted to talk about was his willpower. Oh, this guy's willpower must be so great. He willed himself to win. And then, chiropractors wanted to talk about, well, he also sees a chiropractor every week, and that's good, and that's great, I get it. But then again, he also had 3 back surgeries. So anyways, that's my 2 cents on that. But today I wanted to talk about the fact that willpower doesn't work. And so there's this book here by a guy named Benjamin Hardy, and fantastic book. I highly recommend picking it up because he talks all about the fact that willpower is a myth or maybe even a trick that's kind of perpetuated out there to help people to think that they are in control and they can just will themselves to do whatever they want, when in reality they probably can't. And, this is why New Year's resolutions fail all the time. You see most people give up their New Year's resolutions within 2 or 3 weeks. It's why dieting fails quite often. It's why getting more sleep fails more often. Really anything challenging that you want to accomplish is really hard to do when you just try and put your mind to it but don't change anything else. And so Mr. Hardy in the book argues that we're products of our environment. And so if you really want to be successful in your change, if you really want to get a better outcome, that you don't need to change yourself, you need to change your environment. So let's get back to Tiger Woods for a second here and this win this past Sunday. This guy's renowned among the golfing community for his rituals and his habits and his systems and his routines that go about kind of creating his day at the golf course or even his lifestyle to be good at golf. I'm not saying he doesn't have great talent. Obviously, the guy has great talent, but he's renowned not for just that great talent, but also for these systems that allow him to continue to be a great golfer. So even this past Sunday when he won, the tee times were earlier at 9 a.m. instead of 2 p.m. or whatever in the afternoon. And he was in the gym grinding it out that morning that he won the golf tournament. So nothing changed for him. That routine is sacrosanct. It is important. It is exactly what he does and who he is. So this is where it comes back to you. So what does this mean to you? How does this affect you? Well, if you are trying to make a change, you need to understand your routine. Right? So you need to understand what you're doing now that has gotten you to where you are now and what that looks like before you even try and make a change. Because if you don't understand that you start each morning out by making the coffee, letting the dog out, doing whatever it is, you're not going to be able to change that. And then the second thing is you need to focus on changing the routine, changing the environment, more so than just changing yourself. So if you're going to go on a diet, don't just in your head say, oh, I'm going to go on a diet and it's going to work out fantastically and I know what I'm going to do. No, you start by getting the right food into your pantry. You start by making sure that you are ready for breakfast, lunch, and dinner and changing the environment so that you don't just find yourself stuck doing the same thing that you've done to get you to this point. Anyways, good luck out there changing your environment and becoming the person that you want to be.